In this video, you were listening and watching to the first module of the textbook Language Skills. Hope that all of you understood different things discussed today. We'll come with another video. Until then, goodbye. Welcome all of you to Language Skills paper. This is a compulsory paper for first semester BSc Physics, BSc Chemistry and BCom. The module of the textbook is the basics of communication, and in this module you are going to study the basics of communication, various elements within communication, the components of communication and the elements of communication. In this video you are going to watch and listen to the following factors. What is communication? What is the process of communication? Types of communication, levels of communication, communication barriers, tools of effective communication. പ്രിയ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെ, ഈ ഒരു വീഡിയോയിൽ കൂടെ നിങ്ങൾ കാണുകയും കേൾക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നത് ആശയവിനിമയത്തിൻ്റെ വിവിധ തലങ്ങളെ പറ്റിയാണ്. എന്താണ് കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ? ഏത് വിധത്തിലുള്ള പ്രോസസ്സാണ് കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷനിലുള്ളത്? അതുപോലെ പലതരത്തിലുള്ള കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ ഏതാണ്? കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ്റെ വിവിധ തലങ്ങൾ ഏതൊക്കെയാണ്? കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷനിലുള്ള ബാരിയേഴ്സ് എന്താണ്? കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന ടൂൾസ് ഡിഫൈൻ വാട്ട് ഈസ് കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ. Communication is a process of exchanging information or ideas or thoughts or feelings or emotions by using speech, signals, writing and behavior. So communication is a process of exchanging information, ideas, thoughts, feelings and emotions by using speech, signals, writing and behavior. See the process of communication and various elements within it. See, there are many elements within communication. It starts from the speak center and it goes to the receiver, and there is a message, then there is a channel, then feedback. All these are the different components of communication. Communication starts from the sender. The sender encodes the message. He or she encodes the message and sent that message by using a channel, and it reaches to the receiver. Receiver decodes the message and sends a feedback to the sender by using a suitable channel. So the communication as a process is a very circular process. It's a continuous process. In addition to these components, and within communication, there are certain factors like noise and barrier which may affect the quality of communication. Communicate with each other in a number of ways that depend upon the message and its context in which it is being sent. So, the communication between people are in different ways, and this communication depends on the message and its context in which it is being sent. And there are two types of communication mainly, depending upon the channels used. The first one is verbal communication, and the other one is non-verbal communication. Verbal communication is by using words, either spoken or written, but non-verbal communication is a kind of communication without words, and non-verbal communication mainly by using signals, body language, gestures, such like that. Again, verbal communication refers to the form of communication in which message is transmitted verbally. Communication is done by word, mouth, and a piece of writing. Objective of every communication is to have people understood what we are trying to convey. So just like I have told you already, verbal communication is a kind of communication using either written or oral words. And like every form of communication, this communication also intends to convey a message to the receiver by the sender. Verbal communication can be divided into oral communication and written communication. This is one of the kinds of communication that we mostly use in different situations, oral and written. See, for example, we speak to people by using our mouth. There, the oral communication is taking place. On the other hand, sometimes we write something and send it to the receiver. Then we use written form of the written form of verbal communication. Oral communication, spoken words are used. It includes face-to-face conversations, speech, telephonic conversation, video, radio, television, voice over internet. In oral communication, communication is influenced by pitch, volume, speed and clarity of speaking. സാധാരണ നമ്മൾ സംസാര ഭാഷയിലൂടെ ആശയവിനിമയം നടത്തുമ്പോൾ മുഖാമുഖം, ഒരു വ്യക്തിയെ മുഖാമുഖം കണ്ടാണ് സംസാരിക്കുന്നത്. പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും നമ്മൾ നേരിട്ടുള്ള സംഭാഷണം, ചിലപ്പോൾ ടെലിഫോൺ വഴിയുള്ള സംഭാഷണം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ വീഡിയോ കോളിംഗ്, ടെലിവിഷനും അതുപോലെ റേഡിയോ ഉപയോഗിച്ചുള്ള ആശയവിനിമയം, ഇന്റർനെറ്റ് വഴിയുള്ള ആശയവിനിമയങ്ങൾ, ഇതൊക്കെയും ഓറൽ കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷനിൽ വരുന്നതാണ്. സോ പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും ഓറൽ കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ വളരെ ഇഫക്റ്റീവായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ആശയവിനിമയമാണ്. അതിനുള്ള കാരണം തന്നെ വ്യക്തികൾ തമ്മിലുള്ള കണ്ടുകൊണ്ട് സംസാരവും കേൾവിയും നടക്കുകയാണ്. പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും ഇതിനെ സ്വാധീനിക്കുന്ന ഘടകങ്ങൾ, ശബ്ദത്തെ സ്വാധീനിക്കുന്ന ഘടകങ്ങളായിട്ടുള്ള പിച്ച്, വോളിയംസ്, സ്പീഡ്, അതുപോലെ സംസാര ഭാഷയുടെ ക്ലാരിറ്റി, വ്യക്തത ഒക്കെയും വളരെ സ്വാധീനം ചെലുത്തുന്ന ഒരുതരം ആശയവിനിമയമാണ് ഓറൽ കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ. The other form of verbal communication is written communication. All of us engage in written communication often. For example, we send an email to communicate some of our messages. There we use written communication. Or we use mobile phone for sending a WhatsApp message. So in that case also we use written form of communication. In written communication, written signs or symbols are used to communicate. A written message may be printed or handwritten. In written communication, message can be transmitted via email, letter, report, memo, etc. Message in written communication is influenced by the vocabulary and the grammar used. Writing style, precision and clarity of language is all have a great influence in the success of written communication. സംഭാഷണത്തിലൂടെ അല്ലാതെ ഭാഷ ഉപയോഗിച്ചുള്ള ആശയവിനിമയമാണ് റിട്ടൺ കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ. നമ്മൾ പല സാഹചര്യങ്ങളും ഇത് ഉപയോഗിക്കാറുണ്ട്. എഴുത്തിലൂടെയാണ് ഈ ആശയവിനിമയം നടക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ എഴുത്ത് എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഇറ്റ് ക്യാൻ ബി ഡിജിറ്റൽ റൈറ്റിംഗ് ഓർ പേപ്പർ, റൈറ്റിംഗ് ഓൺ പേപ്പർ. So many factors influence the success of written communication. For example, the style of the person's writing. Precision means the beauty of the language, and the clarity of the language used. Clarity means clearness of language. Characteristics of non-verbal communication in detail. Usually, non-verbal communication takes place through signs and symbols. We human beings use signs and symbols to communicate non-verbally. Non-verbal communication can go without verbal communication. See, I have told you that verbal communication came later and non-verbal communication came early. So we can communicate non-verbally without the help of verbal communication. And verbal communication is not possible without non-verbal communication. For example, when we use verbal communication, for example, when we talk to a person by using a verbal communication, we definitely use non-verbal forms of communication. For example, we use gestures, facial expressions, body language to communicate. Along with, we use language for communication. നമ്മൾ സംസാരിക്കാനായി ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന വെർബൽ ലാംഗ്വേജ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഓറൽ കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷനുകൾ, അതോടൊപ്പം നോൺ വെർബൽ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ബോഡി ലാംഗ്വേജസ്, ഉദാഹരണത്തിന് ഫേഷ്യൽ എക്സ്പ്രഷൻ, ജസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ഒക്കെ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. നോൺ വെർബൽ കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ ഹാസ് എ ഗ്രേറ്റ് റോൾ or an important role in communication. See, for example, when a message is conveyed or when the person communicate a message to the receiver, of course more than half of the communication is by use of body language. Body language that includes facial expressions, gestures, other non-verbal elements, non-verbal cues. Only a slight percentage, 10% of the total communication is by using words. Different types of non-verbal communication. For example, there is kinesics. Kinesics is a non-verbal communication by using body language. Haptics. It is a communication, non-verbal communication by using physical touch. Then proxemics. It is a communication, it is a non-verbal communication by using physical distance or the space that a person keeps from the receiver. Then artifacts environment. See, several artifacts in an environment gives a form of communication. Chronemics is another one. Silence is another one. Sign, paralanguage or vocalic is another form of nonverbal communication. Furthermore, nonverbal forms of communication like a facial expression. Many times when we communicate by using verbal language, we communicate non-verbally through our face. For example, we smiles to a person, or we appears gloomy, and we appears angry. All is communicated through facial expressions. And the position we keep our head. Sometimes some people are depressed. When a person is depressed, he stoops down his head. It shows that a person is depressed. Form of non-verbal communication is by keeping eye contact. So keeping eye contact with the person you are communicating, you reveals or you opens up yourself. Then gestures a person uses, the posture, the body posture of a person, shape of the body, and even the personal appearance or the dress you wear during communication, it is also a form of non-verbal communication. Into different types of communication. At first, there is the interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is a communication that takes place between two or more people. That's why it is called interpersonal communication. രണ്ട് വ്യക്തികൾ തമ്മിലോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അതിലധികം വ്യക്തികളോ ഒരു രണ്ട് ഗ്രൂപ്പായി തിരിഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടുള്ള കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷനെയാണ് സാധാരണ നമ്മൾ interpersonal communication എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. For example, two friends interacting between, two friends talking between, it's an interpersonal communication. Even a teacher talks to the class, it also come under interpersonal communication because there is a group between teacher and the students. Another common form of communication is intrapersonal communication. Intrapersonal communication is a process in which people communicate within themselves, either consciously or unconsciously. See, this is the common way of communication. For example, when we think within ourselves, or before communicating, there is a thought process going on in our brain. So it is inside communication. And that's why it is called intrapersonal communication. Within the person, the communication takes place. Other type of communication is group communication. Generally, we know that it is a communication process that happens within a group. Mass communication. It is a communication that takes place through electronic gadgets like mass media devices or mass medias like books, journals, TV, and newspaper. Thinking how to make communication effectively, or how it's possible to create effective communication. See, to create effective communication, the communication barriers are to be avoided or discouraged. See, there are many elements that come as communication barriers. For example, noise that going on within the communication area, or the receiver, the sender of the message ignores the receiver. Sometimes there can be cultural differences between the sender and receiver. Sometimes the receiver do not give a proper feedback to the sender, or the sender doesn't receive, willing to receive feedback from the receivers. Lack of clarity in expression from the part of the sender. Then the problem of the sound, the low pitch and the tone of the sender, the speaker, can also be a noise, a barrier to communication. See, these are all the barriers of communication. For creating effective communication, these barriers to be avoided or should be discouraged. The tips for creating effective communication. First of all, gather your thoughts. So the sender or the receiver, when he communicates or she communicates, she has to gather the thoughts that is within the brain of the person. Then choose the right words for those thoughts. See, when you want to express your thoughts, you need to choose the right word for expressing thoughts. Then you need to modulate your voice. There should be ups and downs, so then it will be very interesting. And you need to use proper body language, and the sender and the receiver should listen each other, and you need to concentrate, keep eye contact, and keep a very good body posture, and use simple and familiar language.